engineers. Glassdoor turned to more than 1,400 software engineers to help us put together this strategic guide for talent acquisition professionals. A few webinar tips. You will be muted throughout the session, so make sure if you have any questions to ask those in the questions pane throughout the webinar. We have a lot of great content for you today, so if we don't get to your question at the end of the session, we'll be sure to follow up with you over email. We also encourage you to tweet throughout the session using the hashtag Glassdoor. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters for today's webinar. Luan Lam is the Senior Director of Talent Acquisition at AppDynamics. Luan brings to AppDynamics years of experience leading recruiting for high-growth technology companies. He spent about 7 years at Informatica, helping grow the company from 200 employees to about 1,500 globally. Steve Burton is the Vice President of Marketing at Glassdoor and is responsible for promoting Glassdoor's social recruiting solutions to the HR and recruiting community. Before joining Glassdoor, Steve was Director of Product Marketing also at AppDynamics and helped build a freemium marketing engine that enabled the company to achieve market leadership in just 3 short years. Here's a quick agenda for today's webinar. We're first going to talk to you about some findings from our recent survey and the current market for hiring engineers today. We'll also talk about recruitment tactics that you can apply to go after this highly sought-after talent pool. AppDynamics will then give a quick case study on the tactics that they use to hire engineers at their own company. And then we'll wrap up with some retention insights and a brief overview of Glassdoor. And now I'd like to hand it over to Steve Burton to get started. Steve?
Thanks, Alicia. Welcome, everyone. So we've got a great agenda lined up. And first I'm going to kind of just talk about the brief summary of the survey we did with software engineers. As Alicia said, we had 1,400 responses. What's interesting about that statistic is we sent it out only to 1,600 software engineers. So the response rate we got was huge, probably one of the biggest response rates we've ever had for a survey. One place you can go to get a summary of what that survey revealed is the Glassdoor Employers blog. So if you can go to glassdoor.com/employers/blog, you can see the full infographic that provides all of the detail and responses and findings we got from that report. Next slide. So I'm sure many of you already know this. Recruiting software engineers is not easy. I actually began my career as a software engineer a long time ago and was a developer for over 4 years at a US tech consultancy. So it's kind of almost full circle talking about kind of what life was like as an engineer and how I was recruited and maybe my expectations about what I was interested in, certainly when I had headhunters call me up. Relative to a lot of jobs or positions, it's actually the most difficult to recruit for because it's so competitive. Every company is looking to grow and use technology to differentiate themselves in the marketplace. So as Mark Andreessen said, software is eating the world. And pretty much a large, I'd say 90–95% of companies these days are using technology to drive their business forward and to innovate. And the only way you can do that is really with software engineers who can kind of take the business ideas and make them a reality in terms of technology and applications in the businesses. Next slide. What we discovered in the survey is that there's almost 5,000 companies in North America who are currently hiring software engineers. That's a huge statistic and really kind of paints the picture about how difficult it is to find software engineers and how many companies you're competing with for talent. So when you think about when you're advertising a software engineer position on your career page or job boards, the reality is that the positions that you're posting, there's going to be at least 4,000 to 5,000 companies doing the same thing in different areas in North America. So understanding the talent pool in each location about where you're hiring, who are your competitors within those regions, so you can get to understand what the dynamics of hiring and recruiting is super important. Next slide. When I was a software engineer, I was always looking for the next big challenge. And this is no different to the responses we got in the survey. Around a quarter of the software engineers are actually planning to look for new jobs this quarter. Obviously, with it being Q1, it's the start of the year. A lot of the bonuses or retentions or kind of incentives to stay at the company might be coming up for renewal, people's reviews, and also projects and deliveries as well. So now is really a great time if you're looking for software engineers. But if you put yourself in the shoes of a software engineer, a lot of it as well is down to the technology and the challenges and what's cool and what's kind of developing in the IT landscape. So obviously big data analytics, data scientists, a lot of that type of technology and applications with Hadoop and a lot of the technologies there, that's obviously something on the developers' minds who wants to develop their skill set, who wants to become valuable, who wants to work on real kind of challenging applications and technology that are relevant today. So that's something to be aware of as well. If you kind of think, hey, I'm a software engineer, what do I want to work on, or what type of company or role or project is going to be interesting to me, that should help you position and help recruit the engineers who are actively looking for the next opportunity. Next slide. So how often do software engineers make the jump? A lot of software engineers are loyal. That's obviously kind of no surprise. A lot of the top companies like Apple and Google and Facebook, a lot of engineers who've been with the company from the early days tend to be loyal and stay with the company for a long time. However, 3 out of 5 software engineers have been with companies very kind of between 2 and 3 years. So there's always an opportunity to get talent from these software companies. Next slide. Perhaps how the dynamics has changed about how software engineers find new jobs is really, it's kind of changed from the traditional job boards to really online and social media and the development communities themselves. So for example, a lot of development teams, a lot of developers will attend local meetups. They'll meet with their peers. They'll kind of talk about best practices, projects that they've been working on in their own respective companies. And they'll also look at social media communities as well, like LinkedIn groups, Glassdoor, reviews, interview questions, and just looking at what other developers and their peers are experiencing in the marketplace. So rather than kind of surfing on job boards and looking for the next developer position, really their mindset is what is relevant and what's going on in the technology community, and how can I be a part of that, or how can I join a company that's pushing the envelope and innovating. So for example, at AppDynamics, I spoke at a lot of events worldwide. We had events in QCon, in San Francisco, in New York, in London. And really that was a great networking community. If you want to hire software engineers, attending those events and really kind of seeing how the developers communicate and network and what sessions and technology is relevant, that's a really good kind of way to really understand how the engineers go about finding jobs. Referrals, again, are a huge part of that process. But social media really is where a lot of the kind of due diligence and research and fact-finding, engineers are starting to use that more and more. This is something we've noticed as well. We did a survey again in Q1 where we surveyed over 2,000 recruiters, and what we found was 48% of their candidates were using Glassdoor as part of their kind of research and decision-making process for a job. So online, your kind of employer brand is really a place where engineers are influenced because they're obviously networking with peers. They're looking at authentic information and reviews that other developers have written about the company. Also as well, the blogs that a lot of tech companies and businesses have is a great source of information for developers. So for example, the Netflix blog or Walmart Labs, companies are using their development and technical departments to really, as part of their employer brand. So part of their recruiting strategy is to be seen as the thought leader, is to be seen as the innovation kind of center. And obviously, if you're looking to recruit software engineers, if they're going to hit your company blog and see that you're working on very cool technology projects, you're solving very relevant problems, then it's going to interest them a lot more than if perhaps that information didn't exist and they couldn't see the types of projects that developers are working on in that company. Next slide. Perhaps the biggest finding we got from the survey was just how much software engineers kind of wanted transparency from the recruitment process. So again, understanding kind of the pros and cons is obvious, but really getting an inside view of what's going on in the company. I can remember when I was recruited as an engineer, the job position sounded too good to be true. It sounded like the perfect opportunity for me. At the time, I just graduated doing Java development at university, and I was told, yeah, within 3 months of you starting, we'll have you on a Java project. You'll be learning all of the cool technologies. You'll be working with customers to design applications and do requirements definition. And then when I got there, the first thing that happened, they put me in application support. And I didn't do application development for 18 months until I'd started. And that for me was unbelievably disappointing, to be sold on the kind of how great the company is and the opportunities that I would have at the company, to then begin not doing application development and not working on the cool projects or learning new technology, to be put on an application support was pretty difficult to take. And in hindsight, I'd much rather have joined a company that would have trained me on day one and said, yep, here's a development project, this is the tool sets, this is the skills, and let's get you up to speed as soon as possible. So me going into that role, my expectations were completely different from what the recruiter had told me. And I think more than anything, software engineers tend to be very skeptical. They tend to want a lot of answers to questions, and they're willing to do the fact-finding themselves. So kind of just being open and saying, hey, this is the company, these are the projects we're working on, and providing a balanced view of what the opportunity is, I think goes really a long way with software engineers. As you'll see, one of the slides later on in the deck is really kind of keep the BS to the minimum, because software engineers by their nature are pretty good at sniffing that out. And as soon as that happens, your credibility is kind of not where it needs to be. But again, like being transparent about the projects that are actively going on in the company. So if that software engineer did start 3 or 4 weeks from the conversation, what is the project they would be working on? And what does that involve? What are the technologies? How can that developer grow? Is there opportunity for that developer to step up? All common questions, but I think it's very useful you paint an accurate picture of what will happen when the engineer joins the company. Next slide. Here's some examples of things to do. Again, another thing when I was a developer was recruiters used to call me and say, I work for a headhunter agency, you're really important, your skill sets match our job specification. And when I asked them to define what those skill sets were, those skill sets were nothing like the skill sets that I had. It was almost like they were telling me that I was the perfect fit for the role and that if you come and work at this company, everything will be great. I think what engineers really appreciate is firstly understanding the types of applications that they're currently building, the technologies involved, and perhaps the processes and tooling that they're currently using. So obviously agile methodology and kind of development tools, how what they're doing today is relevant for the opportunity that you're presenting them with. Kind of talking all of the buzzwords and not making it specific to that individual, it just paints a picture that you're not really kind of, it's not about the individual. You're treating every candidate as the same picture with the same skill set. Developers are quite unique and different, and their expectations of their skill sets and the technologies they want to work on also differs as well, depending on the type of development. Especially in enterprise applications where you've now got multiple languages. You have Java, .NET, Python, Ruby, Scala. You've got all these kind of fundamental different approaches to designing and building applications. It's really important you understand the skill set of the developer and help them understand how that's relevant in the opportunity within the company that you're advertising. And again, just common things about the transparency and the culture of the company. Why are you different than the competition, or why are you different than what the candidate's company is working in today? The unique story, it has to be authentic. It has to represent the as-is situation right now in your environment and in your culture. If you're telling the candidate it's going to be an awesome culture, you get free food, there's a great social environment, and the candidate turns up and that's not true, they're probably going to go and find a place where it is true and look to leave and find other opportunities, because that's not a place they want to work. And that's, again, super important. Next slide. This is kind of things that don't usually work. Again, salary and compensation is always an important topic. If you kind of don't discuss what the package looks like or what the kind of financial upside is, again, it's going to be tough to attract talent from an employer that's providing a good package and a good kind of benefits and upside for that individual. So again, if it's a startup environment, what does the stock options package look like? What is the base, the balance, and the bonuses? Like, how does that fit together, and how does that come across as more attractive than what the candidate is currently earning? Probably the most kind of hatred email or kind of interaction I had as a developer was just these generic emails. I still get them to some degree, where the email is sent and it's the most kind of cold, generic, waffly email. And the first thing that people do is just delete it. Kind of understanding the individual, understanding how that person's skill set is relevant and what may interest that particular individual based on the projects they've worked in the past is really important. A lot of developers blog or contribute to open source communities or perhaps talk at trade shows and events and conferences. So understanding the content that those individuals have created and really kind of using that as a leverage point, again, it is another way of attracting individuals. A lot of the people who speak at conferences, they'll post their slides on SlideShare. They'll engage with people on Twitter and Facebook, and they'll use that as part of their networking process. So again, reaching out to those candidates using those different channels, it shows that you're listening. It shows that you're interested in the work they've been doing versus kind of just writing an anonymous email hoping that the individual is going to respond. I think communication these days is a lot different with developers than it has been in the past, just because social media is creating an open community where anyone can get involved in the conversation. Next slide. Also, a part of the survey was recruiting female software engineers. Only 17% of female software engineers plan to look for a new job in the next 3 months. That's compared to 26% of males. So a lot of companies have diversity campaigns for recruiting engineers. I was chatting with a large enterprise recently. By 2020, they want 30% of their IT department to be female. And that's a huge initiative. But again, looking at the talent pool available, if you've got 5,000 companies, all with diversity campaigns or initiatives to find female engineers, like the talent pool that exists today is obviously not going to be as large as the talent pool for males. So understanding the locations of where these female engineers exist, and also as well what they're looking for in a company and an employer that they want to work at is going to help you better position and recruit female software engineers. Next slide. What's interesting is the networking of female software engineers, that the fact that they take more kind of value and how can I put it? They treat referrals and their networks more importantly than males do. The kind of community is a lot tighter. There's a lot more interest between the groups of female engineers. And really, if you can influence one female engineer, chances are she's going to know other female engineers who might be interested in the opportunity. So you can see almost 50% of female engineers rely on company and friend recommendations. So that's, again, something, if you do have female engineers, it's great to help them tell the story of the company, the opportunities, and the types of projects they're working on. I noticed when I was speaking on the circuit in tech conferences, there was a lot of female evangelists out there, and it was great to see them contribute and talk about technology and the culture within their different companies, almost as advocates to try and recruit more female software engineers. Next slide. As I was saying earlier, the blog community is becoming a valid and authentic source for engineers to do their research. So 33% said blog posts from engineers at the hiring company help influence and entice them. And again, I think this can be a differentiator for a lot of companies. If your departments and your developers are working on cool projects with great technology and solving real business problems, you should be advertising that as part of your hiring strategy. Almost kind of asking architects or engineers to blog about the experiences of working in your company, the problems you're solving, and also the technology that's relevant today that you're looking to use. And this is something Netflix did an amazing job of. Their tech community is one of the places where a lot of developers go for advice, to learn about the new projects, and also to look at the tooling and the kind of open source communities and software they can leverage to make a difference in their company. Walmart Labs as well did a great job marketing their brand as a place of innovation for development, and really changed the whole way people look at Walmart. So it's seen as a kind of a hub of software development. And again, you've got Amazon as well, who are doing a great job innovating and contributing to the tech communities. So if your developers are currently working on kind of interesting projects, kind of using that work to attract other talent is going to be something you can benefit from. Next slide. And again, the meetups, 41% say they appreciate meetups at company hiring where they have a chance to connect with other engineers. In San Francisco alone, you've probably got at least 5 to 10 different meetups every day sometimes on different technologies and communities. And again, when I was on the speaking circuit, pretty much in every city in North America, you've got these local meetups for .NET, for Java, for the different technologies. And that's a real great place to speak at events and to also network and connect engineers and tell them about the story and the opportunities you have. I think pretty much every event I attended at a local meetup, there was always 1 or 2 recruiters who would sponsor the event and would just give a quick 2-3 minute pitch at the beginning about the opportunities they've got and the types of opportunities and developers they'd love to have a conversation with. It's an easy way to almost influence people who attend these meetups, and you can meet with them face-to-face versus kind of over the phone or over a kind of formal email communication. Next slide. 65% of engineers in the service at social media is the most effective channel about learning about job opportunities. So again, it's one thing to understand the job description and the role. It's another thing to really understand the employer behind that job advertisement, to see what the culture's really like, to understand whether people would be a good fit for those companies. So again, the information is available now online, so to any engineer who wants to know what it's like to work at Google or to work at Facebook or to work at any company, and having your employer brand online and making it part of your social media strategy is really important for influencing software engineers. Next slide. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Luan, who's going to talk about the recruitment strategies at AppDynamics and how he is able to recruit software engineers. Luan?
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Steve. So a lot of what I'm going to be covering today, Steve touched on quite a few points, but I'll definitely take a deeper dive into some of the points that Steve talked about in relation to AppDynamics and how we have been successful in growing our engineering team. So in the past year or so, I'm coming up on a year here at AppDynamics. So when I came into the company, we had about 200 or so employees. We ended the year last year at about 400. And out of that mix, we have hired close to 60 engineers, about 7 product managers, and about 3 tech writers. So all in all, we hired about 70 people in just in R&D alone. And then I wanted to share my success story with all of you because I think recruiting is a sales and marketing function. And I think the minute that you come to terms with what that role is, it'll go a lot faster for you. So with that, next slide. Great. So the art of storytelling, I think this is the most important. One important thing in recruiting is having a story to tell. And in terms of the art of storytelling, I broke it down into 3 different subgroups. The first one is the market story. Why does your company exist? And what is important about your company that will speak to the engineers? This is so important. I think for us, the market story is we're solving a huge problem. And that is what I say is selling cold medication versus vitamins. And that is so relevant to the engineers. The second point is the technology story. How is the product built? And what is interesting and challenging about your technology that will speak to the engineers. And I think for us, the story there is our technology was actually founded and built by engineers themselves. Both our co-founders, Jyoti and Bhaskar, both are engineers by trade. So they built the technology on the ground up. And this speaks really well when we actually market that point to engineers, because that is something that they actually can relate to. So we leverage that quite a bit. And so if you're at a company that your founder and CEO or co-founders are technologists themselves, you need to sell that. That's a good selling point. And the last piece of the storytelling is the relevant story, why it should matter to engineers and how they fit into the equation that you're trying to build a company. For instance, a lot of the engineers that we look for, we tend to look for folks who actually are doing a similar project somewhere else. What we do here is very geeky and very nerdy. I mean, it's a geeky product, infrastructure, back-end tool, so we look for a very specialized pool of candidates. And the minute we get to them, they get excited because what we do here is we're disrupting the APM, which is Application Performance Management market, which they would love to kind of sink their teeth into. And just to kind of just round out the whole storytelling aspect of it, also try to build your culture into the storytelling as well. Engineers do want to see a glimpse of the personality of the company, the people that they might be end up working with, and how they fit into that picture as well. Next slide. So with the storytelling drafted or crafted, the next thing that we did here at AppDynamics when I got here was doing a lot of branding and advertising. To be completely honest, when I first got here, I was pretty shocked that a lot of the engineers haven't heard about us. Every time we picked up a phone and called an engineer, he or she, I would say 8 out of 10 times, didn't know who we were. And that was an issue when it came to recruiting for us. So I spent about a quarter, my first quarter here, really, in addition to building on my own recruiting team, I invested a lot of time and energy into branding and into branding and advertising. And when I talk about branding, there are 2 types of branding, internal and external. So internally, what I've done with my team was to actually build an elevator pitch that all of the recruiters would speak the same language. So it doesn't matter if you're talking to a sales candidate or an engineering candidate, that you are speaking the same language. We created a cheat sheet that highlights our company successes, some key company facts that we think will be important. And externally, in terms of branding and advertising, we did a bunch of marketing campaigns. For instance, we took out a marketing campaign with Glassdoor, which was a huge success for us. As you know, a lot of engineers these days, before entertaining an opportunity or an interview, they go into Glassdoor, they want to review the company first, they want to know what other people are talking about the company before actually accepting to even talk to us. So we've done really well on Glassdoor. We are rated 4.4 out of 5, and 92% of our employees actually approved of our CEO. So we actually launched a campaign with Glassdoor where periodically, if we were to go on an event or we were to hold a meetup, that Glassdoor would help us spread the word, if you will, in terms of pumping out different marketing campaigns to raise the visibility of a particular event that we are attending or hosting. So we did a lot of that with the billboards. We took about 3 billboards around the city to kind of capture the pool of candidates that are commuting down the peninsula or the South Bay. And actually, that has also yielded a few hires for us from that campaign as well. Next slide. Highlighting your achievements. Uber important. For instance, we were very honored and proud to be named one of the top 50 employers to work for by Glassdoor in 2014. We marketed, really, the heck out of that news. We put out our own press release. If you go on Glassdoor and look at AppDynamics, I mean, that is front and center on our company page. In fact, that is one of the company facts that when we talk to candidates, we actually highlight. And we were also named by Forbes magazine as the #1 cloud computing company and CEO to work for in 2013. Again, we highlighted, and we still do that heavily today as well. Next slide. Another campaign that we're actually looking to launch, and the images that you're seeing right now, the graphics that you're seeing right now, is actually an actual campaign that we're actually launching with Glassdoor next week. We are huge in diversity recruiting, especially with women in technology. Again, this is an important point that Steve actually covered earlier on in his presentation. As a company, there's a big push to get more women in technology into the company. We are launching this campaign with Glassdoor next week to really attract the female engineers into our company. Now, beyond the Glassdoor campaign, what we're doing too is we are associated with quite a few organizations that are female engineering oriented, such as She's Geeky, Nerd Underground, the Grace Hopper Conference that we are attending in October. And in addition to those organizations, we are also doing grassroots campaigns as well. We are attending high school events to talk to female students in high school about why they should go into engineering and sciences. There's a huge shortage of female engineers in the Valley and really globally as well. And so we are trying to raise awareness at high school level for female students to really think about, okay, if I want to go to college, maybe engineering is a major that I would like to attend or sign up for as well. Next slide. And campus recruiting is a huge initiative here for us. We, number one, we actually employ interns all year round here at AppDynamics. On average, we have about 5 to 10 interns year round. So we work with a few different campuses that would supply interns on a rotation program and or a co-op program that we can actually hire on a quarterly basis. But campus recruiting is really the organic growth of any organization. We every year we wait for the book to come out on the top 10 CS programs in the nation, and those are the top 10 schools that we normally target. We normally hit all 10 of them. We split our recruiting team out, and a few of us would take a few different schools, and we travel. On campuses, we also work with different organizations. For instance, Women in Engineering groups from all major campuses. We do sponsor tech talks. We do hold pizza nights. We do sponsor an event, whether it's offsite or on-site for them. For instance, actually, this week on Friday, on Monday, we hosted the MIT Tech Track. We had about 25 students who are graduating from MIT that are traveling up and down the valley this week, talking to different companies, and we hosted them for half a day. And we are interviewing too this Friday. So that's a key event, and it's really inexpensive to do, and it's not very time consuming. A lot of these campuses would be more than willing to work with the internal recruiting organizations to set up events. Next slide. Leveraging available tools and resources. This is an important key. So for us, available tools and resources, first and foremost, would be our employees. A players attract other A players into the company. We leverage our engineers quite a bit in terms of really tapping into the network of contacts. So out of that, what we've done here is very, I would say very progressive in terms of our leveraging our networks of contacts from our employees. We rolled out an employee referral platform called RollPoint. So what RollPoint does is it actually will market the different jobs that we have to a network, to our employees' network of contacts, without our employees having to do that themselves. Now, if one of their contacts actually applies to a job, their name is attached to that person, and they will get the referral fee. So automatically, everything is actually done in the background. We do engage our employees in terms of when a candidate applies that is within the network. We will sit them down and talk to them about, oh, okay, so what do you think about this particular candidate? And also get them involved in the selling and closing process as well. Another tool that we're also looking to roll out as well is a platform called Outreach. And what this platform would do is it's a candidate nurturing platform, very much like a marketing and sales. nurturing campaign type of application. But this deals with really passive candidates or candidates who, are not interested in applying today. However, they want to be in our network to get jobs marketed to, and so they are ready to make the move. And this is such a powerful tool that actually we are very keen on rolling out. We signed up with the company already. We're just waiting for them to actually roll it out for us. And another thing that a lot of people don't actually think about or tend not to think about is actually using Glassdoor as well for reviews. Leverage your employees, leverage your new hires. Encourage them to go on to Glassdoor and actually write a review, an honest review, in terms of their, whether it's their interview process to 3 months into the job, how they are, doing, or if expectations are met after 3 months. Glassdoor reviews, I have to tell you, every engineer that we have interviewed, one of the first things that they would say is, yes, I did go into Glassdoor and check you guys out before agreeing to talking to you. So Glassdoor definitely is an important tool that a lot of people actually do not think about utilizing or leveraging, but should. Next slide. So in order to hire great engineers, you must run an effective recruiting process. And what that means is having a very non-complicated, transparent, and easy process for engineers to work with. For instance, internally as well for recruiters, building a pipeline, right? That's very important. I actually, my team and I run a recruiting team like it is a sales organization. We actually do candidate pipeline, just like, a sales organization would do with their sales pipeline. We actually assign the probability, the percentage of closing on candidates. We go into a room a few times a week, and we actually will figure out how many potential offers we have for the week and tally that out for the month, and also assign the probability of closing, the number of hires within that month as well. But first and foremost, I would say having a very short, sexy, and personalized messaging to the candidates, the engineers, is very important. Keep it simple, keep it fun, keep it relevant to what they're working on, and or keep it to their interests and passion. Then you will capture their attention immediately. And that's also important in trying to build that connection with them. So what we've done here is actually, one of the things we also have done here is we surveyed our engineers that we hired. We did 2 surveys, one with engineering candidates that we're interviewing, and one with the engineering new hires after 6 months of being here. So what we did with the engineering candidates that we're interviewing is we wanted to understand how they view our interview process and their candidate experience and how we could improve on that front. I have to tell you, the feedback was very telling. There were certain areas that we missed during the interview process that we have improved on now, that candidates are telling us that we could do better. In terms of the pool of new hires that we did the survey on, in terms of if expectations were communicated clearly, and if expectations are met after 6 months, that was very telling for us as well. We were great in some areas. We weren't so great in others groups. So we have to go back and actually adjust and work with the hiring managers in terms of really making sure that they hold true to the scope of the responsibilities that they communicated to engineers when they were interviewing. And then it allows us the time to actually course correct our behavior as well and make sure that employees are actually being directed in the right way. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so awareness and influence over our competitors. This is actually probably the most important thing to our CEO. If you look at the chart, there, as you can see, are two competitors, New Relic and Computeware. After engaging with Glassdoor, our visibility went up tremendously. We have more people directed from Glassdoor onto our website applying to jobs. Different marketing campaigns that we ran, really tremendously helped the pipeline as well. Again, our CEO is very happy with the fact that we actually are trending above our competitors, especially for in terms of the war for talent in the Valley. Next slide. Again, same line, repetition against the competitors. As you can see, the rating, right? I mean, the rating is important to us. Like I said, 4.4 out of 5. We are trending above Splunk, above CA, and above New Relic. I mean, that's quite important for us to be the leader in the pack in terms of our reputation. And again, I think having been named one of the top 15 employers to work for in 2014 by Glassdoor also raises a lot of visibility for us and also puts us in a different category against our competitors as well. Next slide. Continuing to thrive in recruiting. This is important. To always be looking out for new and improved recruiting technologies. Yes, I think we all use certain tools or certain job boards that we use, but definitely be on the lookout for what's coming down the pike. I would say 2 years ago, I would think about really leveraging Glassdoor for a lot of the hiring, and in the last 10 months, I've been working with Glassdoor. I mean, that has changed. I mean, that has completely changed the way I look at my recruiting business in a different light. But also, another thing to think about is learn from the best. Pick out some of the companies that you admire in terms of the caliber of candidates that they can attract. Get in contact with them. Learn their business and make it your own. Next. Glassdoor success story. So I think this is very transparent, right? So our challenge coming in, when I actually came into the company, we were 28 engineers behind in our hiring, and I think we all know 28 hires behind our engineering hiring is just not great in terms of meeting our product releases. After launching the campaign with Glassdoor, we were able to get 20 hires out of that. Our cost per hire, by the way, is about $4,000 to $5,000 per hire. With Glassdoor, we were able to reduce it down to $700. I mean, I couldn't think of a lesser way of actually doing business in terms of hiring. And the solution the employer profile, I mean, definitely the job ads really helped us in terms of we are getting an influx of candidates applying through Glassdoor to us, and also Glassdoor helps drive traffic to our careers page as well. Next slide.
Actually, Luan, we're going to cut here and look at some of the questions today.
Okay.
Steve, actually, an attendee asked if you can tell them what is the biggest benefit of Glassdoor for recruiters and for sourcers?
I'd say the biggest one is really helping you differentiate yourselves in the marketplace. If you're recruiting a software engineer and he's good or she's good, chances are they're going to have multiple offers or multiple options on the table. And obviously, if they're going to research the companies online and look at the reviews and what it's like to work at those companies, the Glassdoor profile is really where you can tell your story and tell the candidate why you're different and why your company is a better fit for that individual. Again, it's a competitive market space. Your employer brand and the way you communicate your culture and the things that are relevant to a candidate, you can do that all on a profile. And I think that's telling your story and making your kind of story heard in the marketplace, I think it is one of the biggest benefits.
Awesome. And just quickly to recap, Steve, do you have any top tips for the attendees on the line when it comes to recruiting software engineers?
Yeah, I think the biggest tip is putting yourself in the shoes of a software engineer and really looking at their persona, where they network, what interests them. Look at and work in the communities, or certainly network, and look at what's going on within the online communities, and also events and conferences as well. For me, that's one of the best places to engage a software engineer face to face, to tell your story and to get your existing software engineers to help influence new candidates as well. So again, if you're working on great projects with relevant technology and you're making an impact, there isn't a better way to recruit than to have your existing software engineers tell that story and share how exciting and how cool it is to work on those projects. I think, as Luan mentioned, recruiting today is part of its marketing that owns telling the story of the branding and the culture and experience. But I think you've got to leverage the software engineers you currently have to help them tell your story.
Awesome. And then, Luan, there was a question for you in regards to campus recruiting that sounded really good to all of the attendees, and they're just wondering if you had any more information on the success that you've had with each of those campaigns.
What are you making?
Say it one more time. You cut
sorry,
out.
Steve, I think you need to mute. I heard a little bit of background noise. Luan, when it comes to campus recruiting, can you talk a little bit more about that process and how it works? I know you said you monitor closely kind of the top 10 universities. How do you go about reaching out and setting up those meetups? The attendees really liked the information about that.
Yes, so yeah, definitely call the career centers, and we're actually in the thick of lining up our fall schedule for college recruiting right now. So you can actually go online to register for the different events. But one of the things that we have done here as well is we would get in contact with professors directly. And before we actually attend the event, the recruiting event, we will show up a day or two earlier, and we will host a pizza night. And the professors actually would invite his or her students out, and we actually do a recruiting event around that privately before they actually get to talk to anyone else, and build a more personal relationship with all the students.
Great. That's awesome. So as as we mentioned, I know some of you are curious about receiving slides after the webinar. So after this webinar, you'll get a follow-up email. There it'll have some information about Glassdoor and also the slides from today's presentation. We're also going to include a full guide of all the findings from the survey, and as Steve mentioned earlier, we sent out the email to about 1,600 engineers on Glassdoor and 1,400 responded. So it's going to go into detail just more about that and all the findings that we found, and there's a breakout of everything that we learned when it comes to female engineers. So you'll definitely be able to kind of take those and build some great diversity campaigns. And then I guess with that, we will close the session for today. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you, Luan, for sharing your story with everybody on the line. And with that, we will close. Thanks.
Thank you.